Well,
Exactly.
good morning.
We
Welcome to this special edition of Daybreak. We are live from Parliament, where this afternoon the President will address a joint sitting of Parliament, of the National Assembly and the Senate. Of course, this is enshrined in the Constitution. So much to worry about, so much to hope for as well. And that's the conversation we want to have right now with some lawmakers who actually will be in Parliament when the President gives his State of the Nation address from 2:30 p.m. today. Let me introduce my guests. I'll start from my far left there. We are joined by Honorable Gladys Wanga, the Woman Rep Homa Bay. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Aiga.
Together with Honorable Alice Wahome, Member of Parliament for Kandara. Welcome to the program as well.
Thank you, Aiga.
Honorable Wanga, let me start with you. Last year, when the President gave his State of the Nation address, he focused on corruption, he spoke on the SGR, devolution and unity. Pick up from that, what are your expectations this time round?
Yeah, I think the theme still runs. Unity is a big thing for this country because we've seen what divisions can cause. So it is my anticipation that the President will be elaborating to Kenyans why it is so important that we all pull together. And he has been very consistent since the last State of the Nation last year. He's been very, very consistent on the message of unity and that all Kenyans should come together. And I think more and more he said unity is not just about him or Raila Odinga or just the leaders. It's about Kenyans coming together. You know, it's about Kenyans knowing that you can live in any part of this country. It's about Kenyans knowing you can work in any part of this country, and a Kenyan is a Kenyan, and we shouldn't take that for granted. I think Kenyans must also pull their weight and say, what can I do in this call for unity? What about me and my neighbor who do not come from the same ethnicity but have to work together, live together in our estates, in our plots, and so on. So I think the message of unity will continue to resonate, and that this country cannot move forward. We cannot develop half of this country and leave another half, because there's been a lot of debate also around, in the course of the year, around should development just go to areas that voted for President Uhuru Kenyatta and not the entire country. And I think the President has been very clear that he was voted yes by some Kenyans, and many Kenyans also did not vote him. But he wants to work for everybody and wants to work with everybody. So I think unity will be a key message. He has been very consistent on the message of corruption. Okay. And I think he has done some work around it, because he has come from a place of saying, sasa mimi nitafanya nini jamani, to a place of actual action.
What changed, for that transition to happen, in your view?
I think he knew that institutions were failing him in this war. And for example, he had a whole overhaul of the State Law Office, the office of the DPP, the office of the DCI. He's had a change in those offices, and then his own will to fight corruption without sparing anybody, because we always said that to fight corruption successfully you need political will. So I think his own will to fight is strong, but also something else that has changed is the whole unity, the handshake. Him and Honorable Raila Odinga coming together in that handshake, and other leaders supporting that handshake, has meant that he doesn't have to fear that somebody is going to be indicting him as he fights corruption.
Okay.
It has provided an environment in which he can fight corruption openly and honestly.
Fair enough.
And I think that is a big,
talk
strong
about the
point.
handshake in depth in just a bit, but let me allow Honorable Wahome to also make her opening statement. Your expectations, we know what was spoken about last year. What are you looking forward to this year?
Okay, yes, it is true that the President addressed, in the last address to Parliament, he addressed those key issues, that is unity of the country, devolution, and SGR. One, in terms of, I think we have made some progress in the 3 sectors, or even 4. And thereafter, of course, he came up with a 4 agenda that he is selling to the country, and hoping that we can pick it up. And but there is need to actually say that when he talks about agenda 4 or 4 agenda, it's not something that should be achieved or will be achieved in a year or 2 years. I think it is something that the country may want to really invest on. On the SGR, of course, we have come from Mombasa to Nairobi. There is expectation and planning that it will go all the way to Kisumu and possibly beyond. And that's a good thing. But we need to look at the amount of money we are investing there. vis-a-vis against the issues that are arising in terms of management of SGR, I think there are critical issues that have arisen that may speak to the fact that whether the project is viable. And we hope that one way or the other, those issues can be addressed.
Isn't it too late to talk about whether the project is viable or not?
No.
Some
We
would
have
say
come
the train
up,
has already left the station.
The country has come up with projects that have totally failed. So we need to ensure that it works. And you see, because it is supposed to generate a lot of business, a lot of commercial, transactions all over the country. Let me talk about devolution. He just recently addressed the devolution conference in Kirinyaga. I think the governors will have to put their art together, whoever occupies that office even going forward. I think structures and systems in terms of putting devolution where Kenyans wanted it to be are yet to be put in place. The national government has a place in that to ensure that they look for the best systems that work. I don't think it is time to kill devolution. It is time to strengthen and additional money. National unity is a problem up to now.
You say it's a problem. She says there's been progress.
I think it is still a big problem because while the president and the Honorable Raila Odinga intended possibly to bring peace, to ensure that the country unites and give the right signals. I think the beginning was not well crafted because these are political offices. They occupy maybe the hugest political offices in the country because one is the presidency, the other one is the opposition. And when you look at opposition, there was the NASA brigade. It was a big team. And at the point of handshake and agreement, they were not there. And any time you ignore even one political interest, then the beginning becomes, gets hazy, and it's not okay. So
which political interest has been ignored?
There was his deputy Kalonzo Musyoka. At the time of the handshake, we just saw two people. So if you look at the NASA is not one person. It's not Raila Odinga. It is Raila Odinga and those four other officers. The principals were many. During the campaigns, they walked and moved together. They put resources and time together. When you come to Jubilee, the Jubilee itself is led by His Excellency, the President. The Deputy President is his principal assistant. And of course, they are affiliates. Even one single affiliate is important in that arrangement. And the minute you walk and decide that it is the two of you alone, then you create suspicion that shouldn't be there. Because it is not explained. Is that the feeling
you're getting right now?
I think that is the feeling because, and you see, the presidency is the president and the deputy president.
Honorable Wanga, do you understand?
Other people there.
Yeah, what I'd like to say is we saw the handshake on the steps of Harambee House, and any movement has to start from somewhere. And the two main protagonists in the last election were His Excellency the President, His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga. When they came together, they had the handshake. Following that, we had the National Prayer Breakfast. And at the National Prayer Breakfast, you saw Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, the Deputy President William Ruto, also coming to give their support to the handshake and to national unity. So what I'd like to say, I think what Honorable Alice is saying,
I'm not sure about that,
let me just hit the nail on the head. I think Honorable Alice is using all these NASA principles and so on to communicate one message. The Deputy President feels that like he doesn't know what's happening within the handshake, especially with regards to 2022 politics. And those are the fears that need to be allayed. And the President has tried to allay those fears, that the conversation we are having about national unity is not about 2022. Because, and I say this all the time, because even if you want to be president in 2022, what will you gain by being president of such a divided country that you have no country? So all of us, every leader, Jubilee always told us that they have one party leader. And that one party leader is Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. What does a leader do? My party leader is Raila Amolo Odinga. If he says and explains to us that we are in the handshake and this is where we are going, we go. We give him the benefit of doubt. We go with him. If Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, who's the leader of Jubilee, says this handshake is the way to go, I expect his deputy plus all the leadership within Jubilee to go in that direction.
Even as you speak on this, do we expect further revelations on the handshake or unity in the speech that the president will read today?
That is very superfluous. What she's talking about, you know, they are used to have read the Constitution. Everybody else has read the Constitution. I don't think it works that way. What does
that mean?
You remember even last time, what Wengi, the people who were actually the followers of Honorable Raila Odinga, said they will not vote for the Constitution because he has said no. If he has read, we have read. And it's the same script she's saying, that if Raila says we take this route, they will take, they will not question. If in Jubilee, I think it is different because we have always spoken as a team. The president has engaged us. He has invited PGs, and those PGs, people are, you know, allowed to speak and even question. And I think the minute we just follow a leader without asking questions, then I think as a country we are lost. You know, it is not. We can't just sit here and tell Kenyans that two people can square this. You remember the NASA team removed Honorable Wetangula, Senator Wetangula, from the leader of majority in the minority in the Senate. And you see, he said it will not be easy. This divorce will be dirty and will be painful. So when she says that they should follow, maybe if it is ODM, I agree ODM would follow. But I don't expect Kalonzo would follow. I don't expect Musalia will
Why
follow.
not?
Okay. I don't. Yeah. So in short,
let me
from our side, let me finish. From our side, we are saying.
Which side is your side?
I'm in Jubilee.
Okay.
Jubilee is Uhuruto. Even the campaign slogan was Uhuruto. So the minute you want to ignore the president or you want to ignore the deputy, then you have the mathematics are wrong because even the votes were mainly gathered from those regions and then plus our affiliates. So if you want to preach unity and peace, then you cannot sever that or work as if they don't exist. Yeah. Inclusivity means that you consult them, you speak together so that the script comes out to the public as one script.
As we go,
I would expect that the president will take stock of how the handshake. In fact, now we should forget about the handshake. Many of us, I can tell you in Jubilee, don't believe now in the handshake.
And don't believe that don't believe in what sense?
You know, it's not working. You know, the handshake was supposed to be followed by engagement, by unity. What we now think is that the national unity we should now come up with another rallying call. And you see, there is nothing wrong in me saying that, because if you find that it's now time to change the beacons or the benchmarks, then you can now come with another terminology that now speaks.
I want to give
that speaks to everybody.
Okay, I want to give Honorable Wanga a chance to respond. But even as you do this, let's talk about the reality on the ground. Central Bank, together with some companies, yesterday released a new survey. 51% of Kenyans live from hand to mouth. While access to financial services have increased, the financial health of Kenyans has actually gone down. Do you think those Kenyans watching are concerned about some of the issues we are discussing here today, or are there issues more important in terms of how they will survive day to day? How do you think the president should capture that, even as we talk about what we are talking about here today?
And I think the president will be discussing national unity as the foundation for economic growth. Wahiga. Kenyans are going through difficult times, and the president will be discussing into detail his Big Four agenda and how he intends to achieve universal health care for Kenyans who are detained at Kenyatta National Hospital, you know, Kenyans who are walking into hospitals and there's no medication. You know, how will we attain universal health care for all Kenyans? How will we achieve food security for this country? How are we dealing with the people who are who are dying out of hunger and drought? The president will be addressing that. The president should be addressing the issue of manufacturing as a way of stimulating growth, you know, creating jobs. There are many young people who unemployment is at its highest. How will we be creating jobs for our young people? Housing, which is going to be a spur for manufacturing, because housing is not just about putting people in houses. The housing agenda is about how do we create jobs. You know, during the Great Depression in the United States, what used to happen? People, to reignite the economy, you could even be told, can you dig a trench here, take this soil in a wheelbarrow, take it to that place, bring it back, then we pay you. So that money is in the pockets of people.
Money is flowing.
And this is what is happening with the housing agenda. which is we are going to build so many units of houses. But it's not just about building houses. It's about saying all windows that will be put in these houses will be fabricated locally by local people.
How long do you think it will take for Kenyans to begin to feel that? Because as of that survey yesterday, they're still not feeling it.
I think that this will happen soon, because as we speak, there's already ground that has been broken for houses in parklands and other places. And you have seen on the newspapers advertisements for the houses. The moment a house begins to come up, the materials that will be used in that house must be sourced locally. There's going to be a standard design, say, for windows of all these houses. These windows will be obtained from local welders. So the investors will put money in the hands of those Kenyans in those local places. And this is how the Big Four agenda then spurs economic growth. But the foundation for this economic growth, the foundation is national unity, but we must also fight corruption. Because otherwise, the money that we have, and let me tell you, the reason that Honorable Wahome is saying that the handshake is not working, it is because the handshake has created an environment for the fight against corruption. And the fight against corruption is touching on certain nerves that people thought were untouchable. But what we are saying is, nobody is untouchable for as long as you dip your hands in the coffers of Kenyans, and still not millions. Every day, Wahiga, we are hearing about billions going in the hands of individuals. Let me tell you, Alice Wahome is an ardent supporter of the deputy president.
No, of Uhuru.
You see, the reason why she cannot say Uhuru, yet Uhuru is the president. She wants to make us believe that this thing has to be Uhuruto. Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta is the president of the Republic of Kenya. Ruto is the deputy president. Ruto submits to Uhuru. If Ruto does not submit to Uhuru, there is a problem. And this, you cannot be made to believe that this is one inseparable. It can only be inseparable if the deputy president submits to the president.
Which for now you don't see as.
But this is you're displaying it.
Quick response. We take a short break.
Speaking for me, I think, and it is wrong. Honorable Wanga should actually tell us that they are working so hard to replace the deputy president. You see, this is a constitutional office.
Okay.
Let me say it, Wahiga.
And I wanted you to respond to the data on Kenyans and what they are going through as well.
She has made statements that she cannot go uncarried.
Okay.
That I'm an ardent supporter of the deputy president. I'm an ardent supporter of His Excellency the President. But the minute his house is divided, and his house belongs to many people inside that house, the minute that house is invaded by foreigners who do not understand our script, who do not understand our unity first and foremost, then there is a problem, and His Excellency needs to look back and see what is not working and what is working. And they cannot be the ones to come and prescribe the problems that we have. And that is where we are parting company. And I think the presidency is the heart and soul of the nation. When it is the heart and soul, is the one that will generate hopefulness. We need, the country now is in a state of hopelessness because of all this confusion in terms of governance. You see, the opposition place in the constitution is to check the government. But now they are in bed sleeping with the government. The country will suffer. There is no governance structure that is coming like that. And therefore, when we talk about the Kenyan, 51% that are feeling unhappy.
Living from hand to mouth.
Living from hand
Brief
to
statement
mouth.
because I need to take a break.
Hand to mouth.
Yes.
I think we need to think about coffee. We need to think about tea. We need to think about sugar. We need to know where our eggs are being sold. We need to stop invasion from the neighboring countries. We need to interrogate why Museveni is coming for a dry port in Kenya. We need to stop people wanting to privatize security installations so that Kenyans can actually, the farmers, if they put food on the table, they do not really need, housing is not the priority for Kenyans.
My goodness,
yes,
hang on there, because we need to talk a bit about that. We're taking a short break. These are some of the things the president will have to navigate through as he gives his State of the Nation address. Lots of politics, as we can see, but also real issues. 51% of Kenyans living from hand to mouth. Those are worrying numbers, and those are some of the solutions Kenyans want to the problems they are going through. You're watching Daybreak. We're live from Parliament. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Daybreak. We are live from Parliament, of course, as we count down to that address by the President to the joint sitting of Parliament, the National Assembly and Senate as well. That will be happening at about 2:30 p.m. in the next, I would say, 7 7 hours or so. And so we look forward to that, and it will be live on Citizen TV. But for now, we carry on with our discussion here. And I have with me Honorable Gladys Wanga, Honorable Alice Wahome. We continue with our discussion on what the president is expected to touch on and how he will navigate through the various issues affecting the country at this time. One of the things the president is supposed to give an update about is the Big Four, his agenda in regards to that. And I know that Parliament has been passing some legislation in regards to the same, but nevertheless, it has come up here as a discussion, as a talking point before we took the break. And I want to allow Honorable Wanga to weigh in on that. The Big Four, critics of the Big Four saying, is the Big Four really relevant to the needs that Kenyans have at this time? And you had some thoughts on the same.
Yeah, because Honorable Alice said that housing is not a priority for Kenyans. And I'd explained before, and this should have been Alice really explaining. Honorable Alice should have been the one explaining to Kenyans as a Jubilee Member of Parliament, because the Big Four agenda is the Jubilee flagship for this term, this legacy term of the president. The housing agenda, as much as it is about housing Kenyans, and Kenyans know that even when you go to many of our county headquarters, by the way, a lot of the health workers there, a lot of the people who work around there do not have adequate housing as we speak. Kenyans, even here in Nairobi, do not have access to affordable housing. Kenyans will die in Nairobi paying rent, for example, because you cannot access a house which you can buy and own as your own, so that you can live in it and you don't end up being thrown out.
So
but that is one part.
Believe that housing is the biggest issue Kenyans face.
It's not the biggest issue. It's not the biggest issue. The Big Four agenda is 4 items. There is the matter of universal health care, which is a big priority to Kenyans. Kenyans want to be able to access health care affordably. They want to be able to access and have medication. They want to be able, and that is why I said earlier that the issue of universal health care must be dealt with, because we are seeing at Kenyatta National Hospital, in the era of universal health care, we are seeing patients being detained for non-payment of dues. We are looking at NHIF, for example. Is NHIF serving the poor or is it serving the rich? Because you find a situation where NHIF pays more to private hospitals than it does to public hospitals for the same conditions. So we must look at the issue of universal health care. We must look at the issue of manufacturing. How will housing spur manufacturing? This is what I had explained earlier, Wahiga, that the windows, the doors that are going to be put in these houses are not going to be imported from China. That is one of the key things in that housing agenda. We are not importing doors from China or from wherever. The doors are being made locally by our young people who are already in Juakali making doors, making windows. The moment that happens, and that is how you spur economic growth, by putting money in the pockets of your people. Today, in Parklands or wherever these houses are going to be built, even in Homa Bay, the youth of Homa Bay who are doing woodwork in Homa Bay town or in Oyugis or in Mbita or in Dewa, they are the ones who are going to be doing the doors for these houses. They're the ones who are going to be doing the windows for these houses. They're the ones who are going to be painting these houses. Everything has to be sourced locally, and that is the trick within the housing agenda that I think is going to spur even the manufacturing sector. When we talk about food security, you bring in the issue of agriculture. You talk about tea, and you talk about coffee, and I talk about fishing, and you talk about, when you talk about food security, we will have to look at all these sectors and see, and even manufacturing in terms of value addition.
With Kenya's current debt obligations, we have several debt payments coming up. And Kenya's going back for a third Eurobond, for another loan from international banks. Do we have the funding to implement a Big Four agenda that will be that Kenyans across the country can actually feel?
And that is why the housing agenda, for example, is how you do it. The government is not paying to build houses. Private sector is being told, come in, you have money to build houses, we will give you land. Build the houses, this is the price at which the houses will be sold to Kenyans, and this, nothing you build with can be imported, it has to be done locally. So it's private money being invested in an agenda like that. So you feel
despite the debt obligations the country has, the Big Four agenda is still, in a sense, realizable?
I think our debt is very high. But I think with the kind of thinking that has gone into the Big Four, including the government not paying directly for some of these things like houses, and bringing in the private sector in a structured manner, I think we can hack it.
Okay, Honorable Homen.
The president should completely cut down 2 items. from the Big Four agenda. Possibly call it Big Two. Deal with food security and universal health care. Because in my constituency, it's a rural constituency, in Murang'a County, where I come from, in her county, Homa Bay, the first priority whenever you enter your office is either I don't have food or I have a medical bill.
These are the visits from your
These are the visits from the constituency. When you go even into the field to talk or to do a project, you will get 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 cases of their bodies, their family members' bodies are held in Kenyatta or any other mortuaries within the country, and that we have a big bill that we cannot meet. So I think that we don't have the money. Seriously, we only collected about 900. We need to collect like 2.5 trillion, but we collected about 900.
This is KRA.
Yeah, KRA.
In terms of taxes.
So we have a shortage of more than what we anticipated. So the borrowing comes in place. Already, the amount we collected, I think 800 something. 800 went about, call it like more than half.
It's going to
90% of what we collected went to paying the debts. Every Kenyan who is working is supposed to pay a minimum of 1,500. And these are the, towards the housing project. And these are the people who are saying on the survey, I didn't say that I don't have food on my table. 1,500 is a lot of money for them to put, they can buy unga, they can buy skuma wiki, and the month will be over. So look, the priority should be universal health care. So that, like in Kandara, I should be having an accessible health facility with the wards facilities there. Every other sub-county should have a similar facility, a county referral hospital. And that is where we should be putting our money to. And then the National Hospital Kenyatta, that apathy that is there, should never be. It was the talk of the region. Referrals were coming from Uganda, Tanzania, up to Rwanda. So what am I saying? I think let us be practical. Let us look at our past. You cannot buy a Mercedes if you cannot drive a Toyota.
Is the Big Four a Mercedes? Is it a luxury?
I think it's like a luxury thing. People, if I would rather eat food and sleep somewhere in a small shanty, because if I don't eat, I will die.
Okay.
Isn't it? Okay. But if I sleep in a matope house in the rural areas, I will not die. I think if we want to talk about manufacturing, let us deal with manufacturing that talks to the food security, that talks to the health facilities, and just reach it there.
Okay. Believe it or not,
so that the coffee can come back, the tea can come back, the pricing can be looked at, the market shyrocks that are there can be cleared. And there are big pharaohs in the country, so that sugar, mumias, muoroni, and the rest, the fish from China can be stopped from accessing our market.
And this is why we're talking about manufacturing.
I want to take this as your final shot because our time is up. Go ahead.
Let me say, if this is the final, then let me say a couple of things. One, you cannot think, so small as to eliminate an issue like manufacturing. Because for people of Homa Bay, if we could have a fish factory and process our fish in Homa Bay, so that we sell the skin separately, we sell the fish separately, we sell the mondo, that very valuable thing that is used to make 7 Cs, which is very, very expensive, separately. The fisherman will have much more value for money than currently, where we are selling the fish whole to brokers to take it to places we don't know, So we would have much more value if we set up industries for our people, even for coffee, even for tea. When there is value addition on our products, our farmers benefit more than if we are selling raw materials, and our raw products. And this is why manufacturing is likely to stir up our economy. You cannot eliminate it, and you don't have to do it with government money.
That's why I say we restrict it.
Go ahead. I want you to finish, please.
You don't have to do it with government money. These are areas where, so long as there is a conducive environment for the private sector to invest, it would really be great. And let me say, the other thing we must do is the president must be allowed and encouraged to fight corruption, so that we can mop up the money that we have to use it. You cannot be saying, we don't have money to do ABC, at the same time fighting the agencies that the president has put in place to fight corruption, in the guise that the fight against corruption is targeting a certain person or a certain community. We cannot allow that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take that as your final word. Honorable Home, briefly, please.
I believe that we must fight corruption, but we must eliminate all manner of politics.
We must fight corruption without
politics. We must remove politics from the fight against corruption. We must stop reducing corruption to a single person in this country, because corruption is about putting in place systems that will stop theft, robbing, stealing of Kenyan money. It is the systems and processes that will deal with it. It is not directing the narratives and fights and insults to one person within the presidency.
At least one thing they agree upon: we must fight corruption. As to how, well, it seems that is debatable between my two guests here. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. They'll be back in Parliament, of course, a bit later on as that State of the Nation address begins. And this is where we'll be as well. Keep it Citizen TV for that. I hand you back now to the team in studio, Trevor, Zinzi and Willis Raburu. But we'll be back here a bit later on. A big team here from Citizen TV. I'll be back here. We'll have Stephen Leto, Francis Gashuri, amongst others, for our rolling coverage of the State of the Nation address 2019. Keep it Citizen TV.